Great job.
Great job. Let's hear it for Uncle Fester. No, in all seriousness, thanks, Ryan. And by the way, that toupee's not fooling anybody. I'm glad to see Ryan's in the house. It's Saturday around after 6. Shouldn't you be explaining yourself to Chris Hansen by now? No, I'm just kidding. It's great to see Ryan here, off life support. As many of you know, Ryan's a recovering alcoholic. He's done a lot of damage to his body over the years. In fact, if his liver was any blacker, George Zimmerman would try to shoot it. Or even worse, Kim Kardashian would try to fuck it.
Oh my God.
Ryan has seen more booze than Bill Cosby performing the vagina monologue. Or President Obama hosting a Klan rally. Or worst of all, Dave giving a motivational speech. You know, Ryan's come a long way. Some of you didn't know Ryan years ago like I did. He looked a lot different than he does now. Basically, he looked like a perfect cross between Scott Brocious and Andy Dick. And yes, as you can imagine, he was fighting them off. And when I say them, I mean all those black cocks. Yep, Ryan looked gayer than a Christmas card from Senator Lindsey Graham. As you can guess, at one point, Ryan was pretty confused about his sexuality. There was even a time when if Ryan wanted to donate sperm, all he had to do was spit in the cup. Look, I'm not saying you were flat out gay, but Ryan was once rushed to the hospital to have 2 pints of cum pumped into his stomach. And to add insult to injury, he also had a slight drug problem. Okay, he did a ton of blow. And also some cocaine. Okay. He's the only guy I ever knew that was behind the 8 ball and in front of it at the same time. I guess you can say he was living the rock star lifestyle, just without the money, fame, looks, or talent. You know, one night he even canceled plans with me to go do something romantic. Okay, whatever. Then later that night I was driving up Route 80. I saw his car parked outside that adult bookstore. I said, Ryan, what the hell are you doing? He goes, I told you, I'm doing someone at Romantics. All right, well, needless to say, Ryan's done more experimentation than a 13-year-old boy home alone with a fully functional vacuum cleaner and an hour to kill before mom gets home. The irony of all this is that Ryan is a respected municipal employee, just like Mayor Giordano, or Governor Rowland, or Mayor Ganem. Yeah, well, okay, I guess that makes sense. But, you know, but all kidding aside, I'm glad to see he's doing much better now. He's back on the wagon, completely sober and enjoying life. Now, if we can just get him to stop smoking cigarettes. Okay, which brings me to the man of the hour.
Jesus.
Woo! There we go.
Dave Ferrigno is in the house.
Yeah!
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a typo. Dave's forehead is the size of a house. You know, we used to make fun of Dave's hairline over the years, but it held up pretty good. We realized it wasn't his hairline that was receding. It was just his forehead getting bigger and bigger. Like a drive-in theater. Nice job, Mongo. No, I'm only kidding. Dave Ferrigno. What do you say to a guy who is successful, intelligent, dependable, someone that so many people count on a daily basis? You say, hey, Mr. Hamilton, how you doing? Oh, hi, Dave. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do nothing, you know, but be here tonight. Oh, and don't worry, Howard the Duck is on my TV9. It's on tomorrow, too. You won't miss it. Now, most of you are aware that Dave isn't the most outgoing person. Terry Schiavo had more interesting things to say than Dave. And we all know Dave is the most decisive person in the world. A soccer game with a final score of 0-0 is more decisive than Dave. And for that matter, more interesting. Dave's about as interesting as an empty picture frame. So, what's the difference between Dave and someone in a coma?
What?
No, seriously, what's the difference? I'm sure you've all had the pleasure of meeting Dave's parents. Wonderful people. Actually, when I first started hanging out with Dave, I was convinced his name was David. Because you would call his house and his mom would answer the phone like it was a doctor's office.
David.
Hello? Is Dave there? hold please. Then she would scream, David! He would yell back in utter disgust, I got it! His household was like a bad episode of a hybrid sitcom between the Flintstones, Leave It to Beaver, and Three's Company, without the misunderstanding in the kitchen. Maybe it was her age. I'm not saying Dave's parents are old, but when they first came over to the States, they really couldn't decide how to get here. The Nina, the Pinta, or the Santa Maria. But Dave was lucky. His parents treated him like gold. They took such good care of him. They did his laundry, cooked him 3 squares a day, and his mom even put a mint on his pillow every night before bed. And that's true, by the way. He was like a giant fucking puppy, except most of the time he shit in the house. Moving on to Dave's professional life, as you all know, Dave finds jobs for those in need. Do I really have to add to that joke? His job is about as legitimate as Jaden Smith's acting career. Dave hires so many illegals that the Republicans want to build a wall around his office building. I'm not saying he hires a lot of Mexicans, but most of the urine samples he gets back have a lime floating in them. Dave's office door has seen more minority hands than the hood of a cop car. Actually, in fairness, Dave did make one good hire, a receptionist. Very sweet Puerto Rican girl. However, she wasn't, around a lot. Dave, is it normal to be on maternity leave 3 times in 1 year? Thought that was weird. Which brings me to his love life. Considering all the things we just talked about, he somehow still landed Maria, the love of his lifetime. Not bad for a guy that looks like Ben Stiller with Down syndrome. I'll never forget Dave's first date with Maria. He was so nervous. He had knots in all 3 of his eyebrows. Everything was going great until, unfortunately, the night had to end prematurely. I said, Dave, what happened? He goes, oh, nothing bad. It's just that Walmart in Brantford closes at 9 on Tuesday. Apparently, in the beginning, dating Maria was pretty tough. We all know how strict old-school Italian families can be. It was particularly hard in the winter, when all of a sudden they lost all communication. Yeah, apparently Dave didn't realize that messenger pigeons fly south for the winter. Put it this way, the Harlem Globetrotters lost more times than Dave got to see Maria. But they persevered, got engaged, and then ultimately got married. I'll never forget Dave's wedding. It was actually the first time I ever met Maria's father. He was so gracious. He even rolled out the red carpet for which they walked down the aisle on. And he was even thoughtful enough to remove the body he had robbed in at first. Such a nice guy. As you all know, Dave's musical tastes reside in the 80s. At first, his daughter was so excited when he was going to take her to see Cinderella. But then, it wasn't quite what she expected. Dave's so stuck in the 80s that he's going to have this roast transferred to cassette tape so he can listen to it on his Walkman. And it's not just music. We all know his favorite movie is Back to the Future. Hey, Dave, if you ever get to go back in time in a DeLorean, instead of handing yourself an almanac, do yourself a favor and hand yourself a personality. Actually, a lot of you don't know this, but Dave actually named Ryan and I's first album. After he listened to it, we asked him for his thoughts, and he was like, good, fast. As you can see, we chose Dave for his quick wit and thesaurus-like vocabulary. Actually, the most expressive I have ever seen Dave is when we went to see a Van Halen concert in Atlantic City. Halfway through the show, I looked over, and Dave actually had his hand raised in the air. I was so excited. Then I realized he was just pointing to the clock, noting it was past his bedtime. Whatever. Listen, in closing, I'd like to leave it a simple knock-knock joke. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Dave Ferrigno.
Dave Ferrigno who?
Exactly. Oh, one more thing, Dave. About those plans we have next week, I'll let you know.